Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new phase. I know that this phase is definitely a fan favorite, and I'm really just gonna give you, I'm gonna give you the full house here, right? I'm gonna give you everything that I use internally at my own agency. And really all a business is a collection of systems and processes. And in this phase, you're gonna get the culmination of the past 5 years of me falling, scraping my knees to bring you the systems that we use at our agency to be as streamlined as we are. So with no further ado, let's get into it. Module is pricing guidelines. Now, in today's teaching, we're going to go over how to play around with your pricing, cardinal sins of pricing, how to price convenience offers, how to price one-time offers, base pricing model, base plus performance pricing model, just performance model, and then bold offer pricing model. So, playing with your pricing. Now, there are so many variables that you can play with in terms of your offer. Your offer is, the thing that you propose to the client. And pricing is one of those variables in your arsenal that you can tweak and play around with. Now, the thing that you need to understand about pricing is there are many, many different models in which you can do it. And pricing really is fluid. It's not rigid. And it's also something that will develop over years. And also your view on pricing, the way that you think you should go about pricing your agency will change, quarter by quarter even. Now, I know that this may be extremely frustrating for you because you're like, yeah, man, I came into this program to know, hey, just do this and this and this, and I'm going to give you incredible guidelines here. But look, ladies and gents, in some areas of business, there is no definitive answer, right? What's the best outreach method? Or, I guess, in other businesses, there's other open-ended questions, but in our business specifically, I'm going to tell you some right here. What's the best business model? What's the best outreach method? What's the best pricing model? These are all fluid and these are all open-ended views and opinions, and they'll change and morph over time. And we'll get on to, in fact, in my agency, how my pricing has changed over the past 5 years. But I'm going to give you some stuff in this program, the onboarding. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the best onboarding protocol in the world. So many people have replicated it over the years. I developed it in 2018. And in fact, I've even used it, because we actually have agencies that work with our agency, so we've got we've had design agencies in the past, companies like AJ Smart. We've had a few different design agencies working with us in the past. We've had web design agencies working with us in the past, and these agencies have built their own info product. And as many of you guys know, at my agency, before it actually used to be 70% info product, 30% e-commerce businesses. Now, more recently, it's 80% e-commerce businesses and 20% info product businesses. So long story short, we've had agencies that run their own education companies working with us in the past, and they've been blown away by our onboarding. And I said, that's something I developed early 2018. And since then, it's been replicated by many, many other people. But you guys are getting the true OG one right here, and also the one that's had many variations of it created. So we'll get into that in a second. But as I said, when it comes to onboarding, you guys have the best system. I'm just giving it straight to you. Now, when it comes to communication, how to communicate, where to communicate, how often to communicate, I'm giving you guys, for the most part, the absolute best practice. As I said, each client will be slightly different, but for the most part, the system that works best to run Facebook ads. When it comes to service delivery, right? How to deliver Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever it may be. Guys, as I said, the service delivery module in this program is like 50 modules. It's actually excessive. And as I said, the main reason that I added so much detail is because the feedback that I got in past programs is, hey, why don't you talk about, CBOs? Why don't you talk about automated rules? Well, that's because we hate them. We don't use them at the agency. But you guys want them? All right, fuck it, we'll give it to you. So we're giving you absolutely everything here. But there is a certain level of critical thinking with certain topics. So I need you to put on your critical thinking cap here because I'm going to give you some amazing guidelines when it comes to pricing. And in this module, we're going to talk about the best pricing model to use. But then, as we get into the next few, how to price for local businesses and how to price for online businesses, you guys are actually going to get calculations to use, et cetera, to kind of help you along your journey. But as I said, pricing is really one of those things where it's very intuitive, and keep that word in mind because we'll get onto that in just a few modules. Now, I feel like an absolute broken record when I say this, but I really just want to put this printout here again, just so you take this information, you have this in the back of your mind as we go into the next few slides. Right? And once again, this is available for download right below this video. We're delivering service in the arena of marketing where our fee is lower than the trackable or assumed ROI. This ROI is mainly monetary, but sometimes it can be an ROI on reclaimed time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's really what we're doing here, right? That is what having a marketing agency is. Now, as we've just already discussed, there's ROI offers and there's convenience offers. So in today's module, I'm going to show you guys how to price for convenience offers, and I'm also going to show you high level how to price for ROI offers. And in the next few modules, I'm going to show you more specifically what calculations to go through and how to position it and how to frame it when you're pricing your services to local businesses, and then how to do that for online businesses as well. But before we get into that, let's start with the cardinal sins of pricing. Cardinal sin number one is your pricing floor. Never ever dip below $500 per month in billable. Anything below that benchmark and it just becomes an absolute cesspool of crappy candidates. I mean, even below $1,000 a month in billable, the market is really more concerned about price rather than value. The next thing is safety margins. You never ever dip below 50% in regards to your expected gross margin. Okay, so that means never below 50% of how much revenue you're bringing in compared to how much you're having to spend. Like, let's say, you know, for some of you guys, even if you bring on a client for $900 a month, which, you know, and you're running Google ads for them, which isn't, you know, it's not a very high retainer. Like it's not really that great. But if you're delivering the services yourself, you take home that $900 all yourself. Whereas if, you know, you have a contractor and you're using contractor arbitrage in order to accomplish it, then, and you know, this person's charging you $500 a month and you're only taking $900 in revenue, that leaves you with less than 50% gross margins. Okay. So as I said, what I mean by that is that if you use a contractor, make sure the total billable that month is at least double what you're paying the contractor, so you have a margin of safety. Next thing is free trials. No free trials. Now I'll explain why in just a second, but this is a non-negotiable, guys. I'll show you how to use the paid trial method later in this phase if you really need a kickstart and, you know, you just need something to get off to the races with. Next thing is minimum term. Always sign clients on a minimum term, even if it's just 2 months. Now, I usually recommend 3-month minimum for people just starting their agency, and you can lengthen it later down the line. At my stage of the journey, my agency only does 5 or 6 month minimums now. Now, before I go into these different pricing models, as I said, you need to understand that your pricing, your pricing worldview will change over the years. It will mold, and I'll get into how mine and my agencies has molded over the last 5 years. But with no further ado, just keep that in the back of your mind, and let's get into pricing models. So actually, my apologies, before we do that, we actually need to get into the convenience offers and how to price convenience offers first. Now, the first way to dial in your pricing for convenience offers is, number one, always remember the cardinal sins of pricing. All right, so never dip below $500 a month, and also never dip below 50% gross margins. Now that you have that in mind, the next thing to look at is industry comps, right? So comparables. Now, for the most part, you know, real estate agents, when they're figuring out, you know, how much do I list a house for, they look at comps, right? They look at comparables. And that's for 95% of houses. Now, there's 5% of houses which are so unique or have such a big USP that, you know, you don't really need to, look at comps. They can kind of hold their own ground, even if everyone else below them is, you know, charging less, or the house prices are less. Well, when you're doing a convenience offer, it's not really like an ROI offer where, you know, you can kind of pick your own pricing based on your value. When it comes to convenience offers, for the most part, you will be compared against what else is out there on the market. So in order to do that, the best way to get some comps is, you know, look at Upwork and look at what people, you know, you can either look at job listings. So there's people out there on Upwork who are saying, hey, I want to spend this much for a project, and this is what the project is about. So you can actually look for some of those listings and get a feel for what people are paying for that service, right? Or on the flip side, you can look at people on Upwork and see how much have they charged for past jobs, right? You know, how much were they charging per project or hourly? Because, you know, people leave reviews and whatnot for the specific project. The other thing is and this is actually probably going to be your most, use the Gradiency community, right? Just post and ask, hey, how much are you guys, you know, for anyone who's doing TikTok creation for their clients, like user generated content for their clients, or for anyone that is doing this or that, you basically want to go ahead and ask what these people are actually offering in terms of their pricing. Because as I said, the people in Gradiency will give you context through the lens of someone who's not just like a cheap contractor, right? Of someone who's actually running an agency, and, you know, you'll get much better and more reliable source of data that way. But I can tell you right off the bat, you know, the ranges are, you know, of course, there's people charging less than $500 a month, but you should never concern yourself with that. But I can tell you the ranges are going to be anywhere from $500 a month to $3,000 a month, right? Between those sort of ranges, how much people are charging monthly for, as I said, TikTok, you know, content creation, for general content creation for social platforms, and then distribution for overall social media management and growth. Another service that you can offer is YouTube SEO optimization. And by the way, I think that's a totally underutilized service right there, right? You can go to someone who has a big channel, like for example, even mine. We, up until recently, we're still not very good at it. We didn't give a crap about SEO. We didn't give a crap about thumbnails, titles, how to optimize, et cetera, right? And we actually worked with an outside consultant, and this person actually charged us $2,000 a month. And for us, that was totally fine. So for example, you can have, and he was even more of a consultant. If you hands-on looked at someone with a YouTube channel, right? And you went, hey, for $1,000 a month, I'm going to split test titles, thumbnails, because you can use TubeBuddy or vidIQ, and you can actually do A/B split tests, but you do that all day long, right? And you help grow their channel. That's immensely valuable to someone whose main source of traffic is their YouTube, for whatever business they may have, right? If they have a merchandise business, if they have a education company, if they sell their own product of any sorts, right? So as I said, that's just another good service idea for you there. But I found usually the ranges are between $500 a month to $3,000 a month for convenience offers. Now, I know that a lot of people are like, oh, why would I ever do convenience offers? Well, no, that's not really true, right? As I said, I managed to get to $15,000, $20,000 a month by having really what was a convenience offer, right? I had a creative agency. I was working with mainly tech companies that just happened to fall into that niche. I was working with mainly tech companies with their Series A or Series B round of funding, and I was creating content for them. I was growing their social platforms, and yeah, that was pretty much what I was doing, right? And I managed to get to 15, 20K a month. And the name of the game with that business model is, and even if you're charging $750 a month, for example, for that YouTube SEO optimization service I said, well, look, you can have a contractor working literally full time for you for $1,000 a month, right? And let's say you have 10 of those YouTube SEO clients, you're banking $6,500 a month profit. So really the name of the game when it comes to convenience offers is more quantity and having an incredible team in place to do the service delivery for you. Now that I'm actually mentioning convenience offers, the other thing that is so important that you keep in mind is the size of the business, right? As I said, the reason I was able to charge, and I'll kind of run you through some of my first retainers, my first retainer was that 380 pound a month retainer with my old football club. And for that, by the way, and that was August of 2016. And before that, by the way, I did 30 unique Instagram posts, 30 unique Facebook posts, Snapchat. Well, actually, I didn't actually manage the Snapchat. I set it up for them because obviously it had to be in time. And then 4 YouTube videos. So like 30 unique Instagram, 30 unique Facebook, and 4 YouTube videos. And I had to create all the content and distribute it. By the time you work it out, I was basically working minimum wage, right? So yeah, that was my first ever client, and it was another 7 months until I got my second client. So I was a company called Genflow now, or Athlete at the time, and they've rebranded to Genflow. So I was 1,900 pounds a month, right? So I think that comes out to like $2,600 a month or something. And then my next client after that was a guy called James Taylor, who was a personal trainer, and he was 1,500 pounds a month. Okay. And then after that, I actually had a cooking show. So that was 750 pounds a month. And then from there, so those are kind of like some weird scattered ones. And then from there, my next sort of few clients were Zebra Fuel, Furo Systems. And once again, these kind of fall in line with companies like Genflow, where there was, had their Series A, Series B round of funding. I mean, these companies had millions in funding, right? So for them, a 2,500 pound a month, like a $3,500 a month retainer wasn't, it wasn't too crazy, right? So, my point is when it comes to the business you're speaking to, right? If they can only afford $1,000 a month, or if it's a local mom and pop shop, you're not going to be able to charge them $2,500 a month for a convenience offer realistically, right? In that situation, maybe I have to be $600 or $800 a month. And as I said, that's why I also like kind of going global with it, right? Because as I said, with some of these services, if you're doing user-generated content like TikTok creation, TikTok user-generated content, or even user-generated content for ads, right? Giving it to businesses, that's another totally underutilized service, right? By the way, guys, when I say something is underutilized, you should probably listen because I've been in this space a long time. I was mentioning, literally, I was screaming about it, end of 2019, early 2020, like, hey guys, like not enough people are doing email marketing for big education companies and e-commerce businesses. Like it's for them, like they've paid for these leads or they've paid for these customers already. So anything you bring them is bottom line, right? And finally, some people started to listen, and now we have people in CPA doing $60,000 a month, $80,000 a month profit with their agency because they fucking listened to me and had an email marketing agency. So A couple ones that I see a lot of potential with is, as I said, user generated content, YouTube SEO, in terms of the convenience offer side of things. And I said, with these, it's super easy to get clients from all around the world. You can charge a little bit low ticket, but as I said, you have the global economy. It's still a convenience offer, right? And it's not, e-com like fucking everyone else is doing, right? And as I said, we'll get into these pricing models and stuff like that, but everyone thinks they need to do e-com these days. I don't know. Not really. I don't think so. And I think, I think if I didn't have the agency that I had, I think I'd probably be working with real estate agents or chiropractors or dentists, and I'd be using one of the pricing models you're going to see right here, which is the bold offer pricing models, because that's the only pricing model where it actually makes sense to have a sales rep. So I wouldn't even have to do the sales, right? Because even to this day, 5 years into my agency, I still do the sales, right? People do the 15-minute demo call with Danny, but I still take the discovery call, right? So I'm kind of going on a bit of a rant here, but my point is, you need to know who you're speaking to, right? You need to know who you're speaking to. And also, as I said, that's why if you can, and by the way, I totally didn't follow this advice. When I first started, all my businesses, when I was doing convenience offers, were local businesses. And I still managed to get to 20K a month, right? When I was 17 years old. But when it comes to convenience offers, if you can go global with it, and if you don't have to actually physically meet them in person, that is a big, big competitive advantage. So next thing to talk about is one-time offers. Now, when it comes to one-time offers, our boundaries expand a lot, right? Now, what a one-time offer is obviously if you have a convenience offer where you're doing social media management, that's a monthly retainer that you're billing, right? And same thing with if you're doing TikTok ads for clients, or you're doing Facebook ads for your clients, or email marketing for clients, right? Whatever that is, that's a monthly billable, right? Whereas one-time offers are things like just web build outs, right? Brand packs, right? There's things like funnel builds, right? There's things like email. A lot of people do like email sequences, right? So they just write back in email sequences. And as I said, we have people in CPA literally doing 50, 100K a month profit with their agencies, and they're just web agencies that sell 30K websites. Right? Because you can apply these, that's the reason we're called growyouragency.com, not growyouradvertisingagency.com, because these principles apply to anyone. Now, when it comes to one-time offers, I said this is really where the boundaries expand a lot. And there might be some of you guys who are just doing one-off video jobs or doing one-off web jobs. And I said that's really why for you guys, I'm going to give you a bit of advice on how to actually go about pricing. Now, I'm going to give you some boundaries here, but I found the best way to basically go about pricing one-time offers is say the price, validate it twice, as in like have people say yes twice. And then once it's validated and it's at a conversion rate that's relatively high, right? So if you're pitching this offer to, 10 people and only one is saying yes, right? Or you're pitching this offer to 20 people and only one is saying yes, then you're probably charging too high, and it'll probably make sense to drop the price a little and get, maybe get a little bit less in, but you're having a much higher conversion rate. So that's really the best way to validate one-time offers, is actually validate it through your pricing. Once that's done, then you can go ahead and increase your price from there. So let's start. If you're selling a website, usually the boundaries are anywhere from $1,000 to $8,000, right? For a website build out. As I said, there's people who, will charge 20 or 30K. But usually I found the boundaries to be between $1,000 and $8,000. Now, when it comes to funnels, I found that, and it really depends on the complexity and the client you're doing it for and what it's worth to them. Now, I found usually the boundaries are between $500 if it's, for example, like a simple quiz funnel that you create for them, all the way to, $10K for a webinar funnel. Now, we actually charge $20 to $25K to our clients, but as I said, we do a lot with that, right? We'll create the funnel, we'll help them create the slides, that we do the back end emails, the whole shebang, right? And you may do that as well. Also keep in mind, as I said, I've been in this game for 5 years, right? And we have a lot more of a track record. Basically, bar one, every single webinar funnel we've created has produced 7 figures in revenue, right? So I have a lot of leverage to go into with that. Now, when it comes to one-off copywriting jobs, once again, it can be anywhere from $500 to $5,000 if you're creating a sales page for someone, or once again, $500 to $5,000 if you're creating a back-end automated email sequence for someone. Totally depends on the complexity, totally depends on the client, and totally depends on what it's actually worth to them. Now, when it comes to video jobs, I've seen it anywhere from $500 to $3,000, right? For one-off content production and then to edit it, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously that's a domain I know very, very well because, yeah, as I said, that's what I used to do. That's what my agency was. It was a creative agency. And although substantially most of our revenue came in from, retainer clients, I still did do one-off jobs here and there. So really just to encapsulate one-time offers and convenience offers, the main thing is the value is really in the eye of the beholder, right? And I'm going to show you some ammunition that you can take into meetings, right? If you have one-time offer or convenience offers, depending on, I'm going to show you basically how to show the client, hey, this is what it's worth to you. But at the end of the day, one-time offers and convenience offers are very similar to Pokemon cards or collectibles, right? At the end of the day, it's kind of what you're willing to pay for it, right? Because you need to understand that content creation, monthly content creation for one client may not really move the needle whereas for the other client, it could be, game changing. And in fact, it may not even be game changing for their revenue. It's just maybe their brand and their image is so important to them that for them, that alone is worth it. So that's something really to bear in mind. Now I'm going to get into 4 pricing models for ROI services, and I'm going to show you this at a high level. So different pricing models for ROI services. Now with all of these, there is going to be a printout right below this video. So you can go ahead and print this out as just, and just keep it around your house, just as a good reminder. But apart from that, let's get into it. So the first one we have is base model. Now this is where you just charge a flat base, very, very simple. Now the pros of this is it's easy to understand for the clients, right? And for you, it's predictable cash flow. The cons is there's no upside based on how well you perform, right? You almost really have no incentive to perform any better. Yes, obviously to keep the client, but apart from that, there's not a massive amount of incentive outside of that. Now, who's this best for? This model is great for agency beginners in online biz niche, right? So for example, if you're working with education companies, e-commerce businesses, software companies, this base model is great for all local business agencies. It's great for one-time offers and convenience offers, right? If you have a convenience offer, definitely do not be charging any other model except for this, right? This is the model that you should use. Obviously, one-time offers, for the most part, pretty much the same thing. And as I said, for all local business agencies, this model is great and also works great for a beginner online business niche. The next one is base plus performance. Now this is where you charge a low flat base or potentially a higher flat base and then a lower performance. The point is it's a mix of flat retainer plus performance fee. Now the pros of this is infinite upside potential and low barrier to entry for the client. And what I mean by that is, maybe not every client can afford $2,500 a month. Whereas if you go, hey, our fee is $800 a month, and then we take a 6% return on ad spend, right? So the profit you guys make from ads, that's much lower barrier to entry, and they're more likely to say yes. The cons of it is there's no predictable cash flow and no guarantee on what you'll make, right? You do have the guarantee of the base base retainer that you charge, but you don't exactly know. You can't predict to a T what the performance will be. Now, who's this best for? This model is great for intermediate to advanced agency owners in online niche, right? So for example, as I said, if you're intermediate or advanced agency owner and you work with e-commerce businesses, education companies, et cetera, this model is great for you. This model is also good for some advanced agency owners in local niche, right? You can utilize this too, as long as the attribution works okay, as long as you can find a way to do attribution, right? So for example, you might charge based per lead, based on the amount of leads that you get for an insurance company. You might, and I've seen some people try to do this with real estate agents. They try to take a percentage of the commission that the real estate agent gets from a lead that they bring them. I don't know how I feel about that. But point is, for advanced agency owners in the local niche, you can find a way to introduce a performance fee most of the time. But as I said, I recommend staying away as attribution can be difficult and cause friction. So unless the performance fee really has a synergy for you as a local business agency, then for the most part, usually I recommend stay away, just because it can cause a little bit of friction because the attribution isn't as clear cut as online businesses. So the next model is performance only, and this is where you just charge a performance fee. Now the pros for this is infinite upside potential, and there's literally no barrier to entry for clients, right? Any client can work with you. Now the cons is there is zero guarantee of a billable, right? You have to do all the work. Like literally you could work your ass off and nothing could happen, right? Now, who's this model best for? This model is only for advanced online biz owners and some crazy people in the local biz agency, right? So for example, a great model or a great example of this is leads for insurance companies, right? If you can bring an insurance company a lead, usually it's worth a lot to them, right? So for example, you could be a performance only local local business agency, right? Where you're bringing leads to companies and you're only charging per lead. Right now, this is really the stuff we do in CPA because of the purity of the model. So as I said, this can work extremely well. It's very risky. You got to know what you're doing, right? High risk, high reward, right? That's why we focus on this sort of stuff mainly in CPA. So if you're in AN, like I would steer clear from this model for sure. The next one is bold offer pricing. Now this is where you make a strong money back guarantee, like 30 leads per month or your money back. Now the pros of this is it's extremely easy to sell, and it's the only pricing model where I think it's acceptable to have a salesperson. The cons of it is if you don't deliver, you have to refund the service fee, so your judgment has to be great. Now this model can be used for intermediate to advanced local biz agencies and only advanced online agencies. So for example, as an online agency, you can say, hey, we guarantee that we'll make you a 2x return on ad spend, or we refund our fee. Right. Or, at our agency, we have a bold offer pricing, but it's boutique for every client, So for example, one client, will charge £4,500 a month plus 3% return on ad spend. And that's the deal. Whereas for other clients, we'll charge £1,600 a month plus 5% return on ad spend. But our return on ad spend only kicks in once we've made them 80,000 return on ad spend. So the first 80,000 we make them, they don't have to pay us any performance fee because they have a track record of doing 100,000. So what I'll do is I'll take a 20% margin of safety and go, hey, look, you historically have been able to accomplish 100,000 for yourself. So for us, we just need a little bit of margin of safety. So once we get to 80,000 a month return on ad spend, the first 80,000 we make you ad profit, you guys keep. You guys don't have to pay us a penny. It's only once we are able to surpass what you've been able to do yourself that we want to get a slice of the performance. So, we'll do that. And then the other thing that may be stipulated in that contract is if we dip below 1.6 return on ad spend, then we have to refund our service fee for that month, right? So my point is we have, at my agency, I have a bold offer, but it's a boutique bold offer, right? Whereas, this bold offer pricing, when it comes to actually going out there, setting meetings, marketing, et cetera, it's very easy when you have a bold offer, but it's like, it's like a cookie cutter offer. And I don't mean that in a bad way, right? And this works really, really well for local business agencies, as I said. So that is a bold offer pricing. So as promised, I thought I would, and I've slightly started to, I already slightly started to talk about it, but I thought I'd talk about how the evolution of my pricing has changed over the years. So at first, just did base model, right? And did that from, well, I guess, look, my first client was August of 2016, but I guess my agency really properly kicked off, right? And I was working on it for that 7 months, but it kicked off properly March of 2017, early March of 2017. So from March of 2017 all the way until, well, I guess for a year, for 9 months, 8 months, it was a creative agency. And then it was for 3-4 months, it was a full service agency. So we do social media management, content creation, and ads. And that was a fucking nightmare. I actually lost a lot of clients during that period. It was a brutal period, and had to get them all back. So, and then I moved to full ad agency in April of 2018, right? Made that decision. So from March of, and so that was, let's see, March of 2017 to March of 2018, I was full base model. And then March of 2018 until April of 2018, once again, I was full just base. So for the first 2 years of my agency life, I just did base. Okay, I just did base model. And then it was somewhere around it was actually a little bit more than the first 2 years. So somewhere around summer of 2019, that's when I first started taking on my performance deals, right? And at that time, the split in our company revenue was, I'd say 20 to 25% performance, and the other 75% to 80% was our base retainer, right? So it was only a minute amount. And then it got to a point where by the next summer, 2020, June of 2020, I got to a point where we were 50-50, right? 50% was coming from performance, 50% was coming from base retainer. And then, 9 months later, the next summer, 90%, 85 to 90% of our company's revenue is coming from performance. And the other only 10-15% is coming from base, right? And the way that my pricing has changed over the years is actually, these days we try to make it as low barrier to entry in terms of the base fee as humanly possible. These days, most of our deals, the way that they're structured with education companies, usually the way they're structured is base plus performance, depending on how hard it is to attribute. So, sometimes with some high ticket phone call funnels, and we have some clients like that, it can be very, very tough. So with those clients, we'll usually just do base. With lower ticket info power clients, we'll do base plus a percentage of return on ad spend, right? Ad profit. And then with e-commerce businesses, usually it's a little bit more complicated. So if they're an e-commerce business doing less than $50,000 a month return on ad spend already, not revenue, return on ad spend, then we'll just do base plus performance. Right, so we might do a £1,600 a month base, £2,500 a month base. And by the way, if you told me I was doing these sort of bases back in 2019, I would say 60-70% of my clients that I was signing were whale clients. So that's $8,300 a month in just base retainer, right? And I got obsessed with it, and I realized that was not the right way to go. Right, I've actually kind of lowered my base pricing as the years gone by, and I'd say our billable this year is the same as it was last year. Because every year, obviously, you want to improve things, and you would think, hey, we'd be making more money per client this year than we would last year. And actually, no, it's stayed the same, and I'm really happy it has, because the main thing that we changed and we tweaked was now we only do 5 and 6 month minimums, and we've really, really focused on our retention to the point that I'm really, really happy. We're at a 9-month retention now. And by the way, I've heard people throw out numbers before of like, oh, we have a 14-month retention, we have a 16-month retention. No, you don't. Like, as I said, if you've been in this space, you can see through bullshit, right? Because let me tell you something. To this day, I still have clients that are with me for 18 months. And then I have clients that we sign on a 5 or 6 month minimum that in the first month, things just don't work out. I thought it was going to be a home run. I thought we would, smash it out of the park, and it wasn't. Okay. And I have to refund them that first month service fee, right? Because I said, we have a bold offer and we do a bespoke quote for each client, right? But it is a bold offer, right? It's an incredible offer, and it's an offer where they can only do better by working with us. So it's an easy sell. But anyways, my point is, I have clients where things just don't work out the way that I thought they were going to work out. I have to refund them that service fee, and I go, hey, that contract we have, we'll just tear it up. And hey, myself, Danny, the rest of the team, like, we thought this was going to work out better than it did. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way. But no harm, no foul. It didn't cost you a penny, right? But that gets added to my track record. That gets added to the average. That pulls down the average of the clients that have stayed for me with 18 months, right? So as I said, 9 months, I have found, if you're actually not selectively focusing, right, and you're actually picking out the clients that have been with you for 18 months, but also the ones where things just didn't work out in that first month, and it just happens, right? If you can get to a point where you have a 6-month average retention, that's great. You should be happy with that. And that's what I had in 2019. And 2020, my main focus was getting it to 9 months average retention. And that's the point that we're at right now. And that's why I'm totally fine the fact that we haven't increased our overall billable. And by the way, guys, don't get me wrong. Like, you've seen, like, I'm sure you guys have seen on YouTube, or I've posted in the group, or I'm sure it's you'll see if you want, you can even look at the video library, right, in the program, and you'll see some day in the lives, and you've seen me bill 15, 20K billables before, right? Like, don't get it wrong. Like, it's not like we're just stuck at 2K a month billables. But my point is, we found as an agency, and this is actually this is a really high level piece of advice for you, and this is something you learn as you kind of go down the line. There's the two biggest fears for an agency, or the two biggest nightmares for an agency, is charging too little and charging too much. And most people don't realize this. Most people don't realize that especially when you're charging performance, there gets to a certain point, there's no matter how much money you are printing for a client, and we've seen this, we have clients that we've made $1 million return on ad spend, like ad profit for, in a single month. And by the way, keep in mind, these businesses, when they first started, like, the way we've structured it with them, it's not like they were already doing, $500K a month and we came in and, we took credit for the first $500K. Like, these companies, like the specific deal that I'm thinking of, they were only doing $100K to $150K a month return on ad spend themselves before we came in, and we took it to $1 million. Right? And first of all, we didn't even take a penny until we were able to accomplish what they were already able to accomplish, right? So that first 100K return on ad spend, first 100K in ad profit, we didn't even take a penny for, right? And yet clients still, once it gets too high, your base rate, your overall billable, I've noticed once it gets past 10K, clients are, no matter how much money you're making them, clients are like a little bit on edge, right? So that's just a sort of high level piece of advice that you've come to learn. But the reason I say all this is because this is kind of where my head's at. As the years have gone by, I've actually lowered my base retainers. I've try to actually cap out the overall billable that we get from client. I don't want to get to a point where we charge a client a 40K billable, because I know that even if we have 5 months left on the contract, they're just going to go, all right, you know what, deuces, bye, fuck it, we're out, right? And that's just the way this game works, right? So as I said, always remember, there's the two biggest nightmares, or the two biggest things or causes for concern when it comes to pricing as an agency owner is charging too little and charging too much. So yeah, that's a little bit about where our agency is at the moment. Now, also bear in mind, we got to a point where, you know, I've brought on many more performance marketers. So we've doubled or tripled the amount of clients that we can bring on from, you know, something like 2019, where if I wanted to hit 100K a month, you know, I had to charge the retainers I was charging. Whereas now, because we have so much more bandwidth, and that's the other thing that I've realized over time. And once again, this is something more high level, but you know what, fuck it, I'll just tell you either way. I've realized I would rather have 20 clients paying me a 5K billable than I would 10 clients paying me a 10K billable. And then you would think that makes no sense whatsoever, but I've actually realized deloading the risk, you know, load balancing the risk between more clients, as long as, you know, the way that you run your agency is everything that I teach you here, right? Where it's not a nightmare, where bringing on 1 or 2 more clients doesn't break your agency, as long as you have the bandwidth for it. I'd actually rather have more clients and make the same amount of money, because I've realized that it kind of de-risks yourself, right? You kind of de-risk yourself by doing that. So yeah, this is just like a bit of a word vomit at the end, a little bit of a brain vomit at the end. And, you know, I'm just kind of blabbering on, but hopefully this gives you a bit of context as to what I've learned about pricing over the last years. Because, you know, you'll realize as an agency owner, and as I said, this is why sometimes I hear people say things and I can tell they've never actually run an agency or done it to a high level, because there's certain things that sound nice, but don't actually work, right? Example of this, right? As I said, I hear people say like, oh, and then, you know, as an agency owner, you bring a salesperson in, you know, so you can remove yourself even further. That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard, right? Like it's so ludicrous, it's so dumb. If you get to a point where you have, if you get to a point where you have even 3 sales calls a day, right? So 90 sales calls a month at a terrible conversion rate of 10%, you're closing 99 new clients a month. Unless your retention rate is dog shit, like horrible, and if it is, you shouldn't be focusing on signing new clients. You should be focusing on where you're losing clients, right? Where there's a hole in your vessel. You know, as I said, you need to realize, as an agency owner, we only need 1, 2, 3. For some agencies, right, that are charging lower pricing, you know, maybe 5 new clients a month. But for the most part, we don't need much volume, which means we don't need much meetings. Which means even if you spend 3 hours out of an 8-hour workday doing sales, what else is more important than that, right? So as I said, that's why with this pricing stuff, it's funny, because I would have, if you told 2019 me like, wait, so in 2-3 years you're going to be charging, your goal is to charge the same amount you're charging now, your focus is retention. Your retention, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. But if you had told me the goal is to charge the same, you know, not be increasing your overall billable, you know, as I said, granted, because we're charging, you know, most of our money is coming from performance now. We do have those clients that we charge, you know, that we've built a 25, 30K performance fee before. And it scares the shit out of me, because I know the next thing that's about to come, which is, hey, like, can we have a conversation? Because we're thinking about bringing in-house and blah, blah. And, you know, there's 3 months left on the contract. And you're just like, look, I get it. You just gave us 30K, but we also just fucking made you $1 million, right? So as I said, over the years, this is something you'll learn and tweak. And this is why at the beginning of the module, I said so clearly, this is something that's fluid and something that we will learn over time. And you get to, by the way, there's another pricing model after this, and it's the pricing model that we're going into, which is equity, right? From next year, we're taking on our first equity deal. And by 2025, the only clients that work with us are clients that I'm going to own a percentage of their business. And that's the way that we're going to do things. And I might, you know, the other goal is, and this is if you guys want to know more about where the agency is going, it's a agency private equity hybrid, right? So some businesses I'm going to inject 100K, 200K. And this is what you can do when you've been running a business for 5 years that's so cash heavy and you've just been stockpiling cash. I'm going to not only run, my agency is not only going to run these businesses, marketing and everything like that. I'm also, for certain businesses, going to inject 100, 200K, right? Get 10%, 15% of the business, 20% of the business, right? And then we're also going to do the marketing, right? So that's the other pricing model that you can go to. But the reason I mentioned that is because, as you can tell, there's such an evolution. If you look at my 5-year evolution, and you know what will be 6 years next year once we start going to private equity model, or once we start going to equity model, it's a real evolution, right? It's a real evolution, and you start to learn that. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoy this module. I know that we talked about some very high level stuff, and before we sign off, let's go to the action step. So the action step for today's module is go to the group, congratulate someone on a client debrief, and celebrate with them. As said, ladies and gentlemen, I think really yes, of course, the step-by-step training is incredible. Yes, the proprietary software that we built is incredible. But I've realized the biggest thing when it comes to online education is the community, right? I've realized that is the thing that goes it from like, it feels like a drag to learn to like you are so excited to learn because you're a part of a community, right? And one of the biggest things as a community is sharing and celebrating wins, right? Because I said you're going to celebrate someone else's win, but they're going to celebrate right back. They're going to celebrate right back when you have your win and you share it with the community. So go ahead into the community, celebrate a win. Read through the client debrief because it's so powerful. It's such a powerful tool. And apart from that, I hope you guys enjoyed this module. As I said, apologies that you guys know me by now. You guys know that if I sometimes I'll just blabber on about a topic, but I think sometimes the greatest insights comes from stuff that's just off the cuff and I wasn't even planning to talk about or had written down my notes for this section. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next module.